Now we move to our positional breakdowns, where we'll go through each fella here on our power grid and talk about their favorite quarterbacks of the week. And are you spending up on quarterback is kind of the general theme for this week's show. John, you're up first, and you can go top tier, mid tier, bottom tier QBs. Just give us some names that you like.
Yeah, so I think the thing that everybody's going to be talking about this week is whether or not we should be just setting it and forgetting it with Dak Prescott. He's pretty much the site minimum across the industry, and he's playing behind an offensive line that we've already spoken about in this show, and has looked sensational in the preseason. At the end of the day, I think that Dak Prescott is safe for cash games because I think that he has a decent floor behind that offensive line. I do think that the Cowboys will go run heavy, but I suspect that he'll pick up 150, 200 yards plus a touchdown or two, and he's got the ability to run one in depending on what happens. So Prescott's a guy, I think in your cash games, he's somebody that I want. Simply because he's so cheap and the opportunity cost, meaning that he affords me the ability to do so much elsewhere, is so low. So Dak Prescott for my cash games. I think for GPPs, however, the thing you want to do is probably to avoid names like Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz because I think they'll be so highly owned. So from a game strategy perspective, what I want to be doing is probably spending up at quarterback to differentiate my rosters. And there's a couple guys I like, and I'll continue to plug our stuff at Footballguys. Definitely check out my article, Tips and Picks. It'll be out tomorrow night on the site. But I'll give you a flavor of somebody I love tomorrow. And that's Matthew Stafford going against the Colts. Their entire defense is decimated right now. I think they have 4, maybe 5 starters who look like they will not be playing, including their perennial all-pro cornerback Vontae Davis. Meanwhile, the Lions have just stocked up on receivers in the offseason. We've got Golden Tate returning. You have Marvin Jones, Anquan Bolden, sure hands. I think this could be a great spot for them in a shootout. They're going from dome to dome. They're playing away. Vegas has them as a slight underdog. I could really see this game being a shootout. You can stack it every which way. I love Stafford Sunday, and I think that it would not be surprising to see him finish with 3 to 4 touchdowns.
Pasquino, you're up with some of your favorite quarterbacks in Week 1.
I love John, but I'm going to go a little bit contrarian to what he said. I've been burned so many times by going cheap at quarterback in the past. There's one thing I like to remember is that no position can go as negative as any other position as quarterback. With interceptions, fumbles, quarterback can burn you. And there's so much value this week in cash games for running back. I'm going to pay up for a Stafford or a Luck or a Wilson or a Rodgers, and that's where I'm going to go this week. I think Stafford is probably the better play. And from tournament standpoints, I'm looking to that Derek Carr, Blake Bortles. The other thing about playing these higher end quarterbacks, the bigger prices, is that they're going to be lower owned than they're going to be in other weeks because people are going to be on Dak Prescott and have a lot of ownership there. So that's why I'm leaning towards going towards a more proven quarterback in a higher point game than a cheaper quarterback this week. And probably most weeks, again, I try to stay away from getting burnt at quarterback.
Now, Devin, you're the tiebreaker. We got Jeff and John kind of going back and forth. Where do you weigh on quarterbacks this week?
I got to side with Jeff here. I mentioned Dak Prescott's fumbling and choosing college. And yeah, here he is. I too have been burned many, many times by just taking the plug-and-play cheap guy on the bottom of the board. Johnny Manziel, I started way too many times.
Browns fan.
But he was also, I think, 40% owned in a live final, so other people have been on him as well. There's a tendency to just say, hey, a quarterback is going to guarantee me 150 yards and possibly a touchdown. That's not always the case. I mean, Prescott could turn the ball over 3, 4, 5 times. I'm looking at guys at the higher end. I'm looking at Luck. I'm looking at Drew Brees. I'm looking at Ben Roethlisberger. Kirk Cousins, as I mentioned before, is going to be my GPP guy. I think it's going to be a shootout of a game. So I have to lean with Jeff on this one.
All right. Well, Austin, you're up, and you may make it a tie again.
Yeah, I'm more with John in the camp of using Dak in cash games. But the thing is, for me, is when I play cash games, I'm not the kind of guy who goes all in on one quarterback in all my cash games. I generally will have a set of 3 different quarterbacks that I like for my cash game lineups each week, and Dak Prescott will be one of those guys. So I'll only have a third exposure to him. And then with my other guys, I'll go for some of the guys you pay up for, like Drew Brees, Russell Wilson. Those are a couple of guys I'm generally paying up for in cash games this week.
So if we talk about a game strategy move here, Cease, sorry to interject there.
Yeah, let's do that.
From a game strategy perspective, I mean, everything I've been reading this week, social media, various sites, everything I've been reading says that Dak Prescott's going to be by far the number 1 ranked cash game quarterback. If he's 40% owned, and maybe that's a little bit high, but it's not too high. I'll say 30% owned. He's going to be 30% owned in cash games. If you don't have him and he scores 20 points, you can write off your cash game rosters because you're likely not making that up elsewhere.
But if he scores 2, you win every contest.
But then you're with 30% of the people. So I mean, I would rather be with the masses if he fails than against the masses if he succeeds.
That's a very fair point about the ownership percentage. If it's going to be that high and everybody's going to be in that boat, on a cash game basis, yes, but on a tournament basis, I'm completely off of Dak Prescott. No way.
I think we all agree on that. Yes.
Yeah.
I will say this: I will lose every contest if Dak Prescott goes off this year.
Good point.
I'm okay with that.